So we're going to talk about open source, more open source, but this time how you keep track of your technology stack, particularly for developers. So I'm going to give an overview of what an internal developer portal is and why you have one, and what Backstage may be able to do for you, and which parts it helps with. And Remya is going to give a demo. So the developer experience. We've got a huge technology stack in the organization, and a new developer coming along, or even an existing developer, trying to think, well, okay, I know I need to build an application, but how do I make sure that I know where everything is, that I'm going to build something that the organization values in terms of the architectural decisions that have already been made within the organization, what the organization considers to be best practice, that has got that is connected to whatever observability tool that you're using, that is going to be deployed in a manner that the operations people can look after. And that's a lot to think about. And when we think about where all this information is in your organization, it may be in somebody's head, it may be on some wiki or Confluence, or some other document repository. Some of it may be in your Git-based repository like GitHub or Bitbucket, and some of it may be, we don't know where it all is. So the aims of a developer portal are to bring that sort of information together so that you can provide the clarity. You can onboard new developers and get them up to speed as quickly as possible. They can find the documentation that is important for the applications that they need to build or modify. It makes their lives easier. And also from the organization standpoint, you can ensure that they're going to follow what the organization considers best practice. You know, too often we're in a situation where somebody may have made an architectural decision, but then they go and see so much code being created that's not in line with that. So that's the problem we're trying to overcome. Now, Gartner produced an article that talked a little bit about what are the life cycle phases where a developer portal could be useful. So they outlined 3 types of phases. When you discover information, documentation, and how you go to create a your new application in your local development environment, how you integrate that into other systems and get hold of access to resources, and then the ongoing operation and improvement. Now, this chart here is from Adobe. I'm talking about how they have constructed their internal developer platform, and it's sort of color-coded according to those 3 phases that Gartner outlined: discover and create, integrate and deploy, and operate and improve. Now, the thing is, a developer platform, it's hard to bring everything into one tool. You end up having lots of tools. But where an internal developer portal really shines is that particularly that early stage of discover and create, and a little bit towards the integrate and deploy. It's quite possible that the operations team are going to be embedded in other tools that they are more familiar with and use every day. But those tools that the operations people live by aren't necessarily the ones that developers need to see, and developers aren't necessarily going to know their way around those tools to find out what's going on. So the developer portal, though, can help to bring some visibility about a particular application that they're working on, if it can get a view of what's going on from those other platforms. So we'll talk about Backstage in a moment, but I don't want to promise that can be all things to all people. the sorts of things that it can do for you is that it can, from a management standpoint, from an architect standpoint, it can help you to promulgate, to communicate what standards and best practices you want to follow. From a developer standpoint, just talked about onboarding, figuring out what components you can use. From a platform engineer standpoint, how you ensure that the things that the developers are building are something that you can support. And for everyone, I've lost something off the bottom of the screen there, but it's about visibility. So Backstage was created by Spotify's engineering team for their own use, and then they realized that this can be quite useful, and so they open sourced that, and it's under the Cloud Native Computing Foundation. The idea behind this is that it has several core features. The first one is a software catalog. So from a developer standpoint, I need to maintain an application, or I need to know what applications are depending on what resources. Well, that is part of the software catalog. If I want to create a new application, then it's better to provide a developer with a template or a scaffold that they can start with than simply use what they had in their last job or what they're accustomed to. TechDos are a way of identifying documentation and treating documents as code by incorporating that into the Git repository where the code lives. You can also search for things, and Backstage will also run on a Kubernetes cluster. So the sorts of entities that it deals with, when you look at the portal and what it's going to present to you, you're essentially modeling your organization's technology stack in this tool. So just as your technology stack has a hierarchy of different levels and different components, well, Backstage tries to create that set of entities. So the entities that you have, I think this is a bit busy, but we'll go into the screen in a moment. But you can see that for a given component, so a software application, you can drill down to that application. You can see you can move to the GitHub repo. You can see what resources, like a database that depends on, or an API that accesses. So there's a sort of a list there of the types of things that Backstage needs to keep track of, and that's the sort of information that you need to be able to draw from the different systems of record in order to present that on the Backstage UI. What I think is a little different from the way Backstage is constructed from its predecessors, it doesn't try to be the system of record for everything. It's a method of providing visibility, but the system of record for your code is still your GitHub or Bitbucket or GitLab repository. Although you can put things in TechDos, you can also access documentation from somewhere else. And so if that's your system of record, then it's not so much changing your system of record, but being able to ingest that into Backstage so that more people can see it and find it easily. So when we look at how we draw these entities into Backstage so that you can see it, well, you want to be able to connect to your code repository, GitHub or Bitbucket. And so there is a plugin to connect to GitHub and your GitHub organization, so you can access all the the repos in that, and then present those as components in Backstage. So there's a series of gathering data from the systems of record and ingesting that into Backstage so that it can be maintained, it can be gain visibility within Backstage. TechDos. TechDos are a way of you can create markdown files within your Git repository, and then if you create a YAML file that tells TechDos where to find those markdown files, then they will be presented in the TechDos section of Backstage. And of course, when the closer you have it to the code, the more likely it is that developers are going to maintain that. If you have something on another repository a long way away, then and developers are working on the code, they may not get to that point of updating the other repo. If you have it within your GitHub repo, then you're more likely to update that, and then that will be presented to you when you go and look at TechDos. So Backstage is also extensible. So there are plugins that have been built by different people. I didn't actually find a Jaeger plugin. There are plugins for other observability tools like New Relic and Grafana, Dynatrace, Datadog, and so on, but not yet Jaeger. But the thing is, there are the tools there to build a plugin. So if you have a specialized system that only you use or that you've built, you can actually build a plugin to for Backstage to connect to that, and then be presented in your screen. Spotify themselves have created some plugins. There are a couple of other organizations that have been quite prolific in creating plugins for Backstage. So, having given an overview of what Backstage is for, I'm going to pass to Remya to actually demonstrate what we can see. But I want you, as Remya is getting set up, I want you to think about, well, how are you going to, as a developer, what do you want to do? You want to be able to find the available building blocks. You want to be able to create a new application quickly, but according to the best practice. You want it to be governable within your repository, and you want it to be able to follow and link to the rest of your tool chain. So with that, I'm going to pass to Remya, and we'll probably take questions at the end, because after Remya shows the application itself, some of these concepts will make more sense. So please welcome Remya.